Tricia, you'd asked about the weekly Google Analytics dashboard. Okay, so this is a screenshot you shared from a snippet from that report. The whole idea of this weekly Google Analytics report is to instantly help us identify if something has gone wrong. It's not really to judge success as much as identify a potential problem. And so one of the things we want to check in this is there a sudden increase in pages that were not found? And apparently, in your report for one of your clients, there is a 160% increase in pages not found. Okay.
That's a big increase for me that I thought. And also, based on what I've been looking at on their website, I do think that they had someone redo some things on their website. So I'm wondering if they just didn't get a page forwarded properly.
Right. Okay, good.
Or something.
Good. All right. So I want to make a couple caveats about this. So number one, hooray, yay, you discovered it before it became a real problem. That's one of the purposes of this weekly report, and it's why I start every Monday morning by looking through these for all my clients. Two, we got to remember what this means. This is a Google Analytics visit to a page that's not found. So it means that 26 visitors or users have visited at least one page that wasn't found, at least once. It could mean that there were 13 pages not found that were each visited twice, but because this is visitor numbers, we don't know how many pages, but we are using this as an alert to tell us that we need to look further to investigate this, because people are coming to pages that don't exist.
So this is not really pages not found.
Right. Yeah, you're right. This is misnamed. You're right. This is users visiting pages that were not found.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So this dashboard is designed to create an alert that we can then take action, but not necessarily give us enough information to know where those pages are, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, I'd suggest that Google Analytics is probably one of the less helpful places to look for 404 pages, because the reason we want to clean up our 404 pages has to do with Google, not just users.
Okay. And so I was thinking Google Search Console.
That is exactly where I would go.
Okay, good. That's what I thought, but then I was like, well, this is a Google Analytics report. So, okay, good.
No, this is trying to warn us that pages have not been found in a weekly repeatable report. The whole point of this is doing exactly what you're doing. Where are those pages and what do I need to find, right? Okay. So the first place I would look is Google Search Console under the, what's it called? Pardon me. It is Search Console. Under the indexing report. And then as you get there, you will see beneath, you just scroll down, it says why pages aren't indexed. And you should see something. There's several options. One of them is not found, 404. This could also be, well, that's what this is probably. So we also have to acknowledge that Search Console is not as an immediate data as Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what we might not see in Search Console yet any 404 pages, but we should at least start by fixing the 404 pages we find in Search Console. And with the fix for this is to set up a 301 redirect from the old URL to the new URL. Now, there are some tricks with doing this, because you'll need to really evaluate if a page is supposed to exist, because sometimes you want a page to 404, right? For instance, a lot of times in my sites or my client sites, like an archival page, category page 40 will 404. Well, that's because there are no longer 40 pages of that category anymore. And so page 40 truly shouldn't exist. So I don't want to redirect page 40, because eventually there will be 40 pages of posts, and I would like Google to read the 40th page.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I do is I purge those out. I would also pay attention to things like query parameters in the URLs. Typically those are harder to redirect. But if you do see an important page, then I would set up a 301 redirect from that old URL to a new and the most relevant page on your site related to that.
Yeah.
So there should be something that's close, even if it's just the blog page. But if nothing else, the home page, but don't just redirect everything to the home page.
Okay. So I do just so I've looked at the not found 404. But one question. So like when I look at the why pages aren't indexed, so I've got not found 404 is one of the things, and then soft 404. So when I look at the 404, I do find like one of them is, it looks like an employee. So maybe they're not an employee, or maybe they need to redirect. So I've got kind of a list of these that I can check. Good heavens, there's like 100 of them.
Right.
Well, so I think that's one of the reasons. That's a really good example, Tricia. So if an employee leaves a company, right, what do you redirect to?
You need to
don't need to, probably, but that's
I would
redirect to just the employee page. And I don't know, I have to look at this client. They should have an employee page, and
or depending upon what you're thinking about, that's one of the reasons why it's important to have a good 404 page on your site. So you got some main quick links that they can go to, because if they're looking for a particular employee and you redirect them to the employee page, maybe that's what you want to do, maybe not. I don't know.
We got to remember why we're doing redirects.
Yeah.
It's not just for users, it's also for Google. So, one of the most important things for SEO is link building. And we haven't talked a lot about that, but it's super important. If there is a link from another website to your website, then the page no longer exists. The 404 page will no longer give you value of that link.
So Google will see that, and they
won't count that link anymore for the benefit of your site. That's why you need the 301.
Okay. Okay, good.
So that's one of the reasons
why hard to get.
Yes. So that's one of the reasons why in link building, you don't want to, like, if you're linking to an e-commerce site, you don't want somebody else to link to a particular product, for example.
Well, you just need to handle the product to make sure that it fails gracefully.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
if you remove a product, instead of, you need to redirect maybe that product from not where there's no page, but to something to say, this product's not available. Here's some options.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be like a category page. A good e-commerce solution will not 404 if it's out of stock, but there's I'm forgetting it offhand, but there is a proper header code for when something is temporarily not available. Or like what I would do if it's temporarily out of stock, I would make sure the page still returns to 200 so that later people can still find it and it doesn't have to be re-indexed when you now have stock.
So what if you have a client that says, like, I'm not selling this product anymore.
Right.
And I don't know if I ever will, but so is the best but they don't want it to appear in a directory and all that kind of stuff.
So the 301 it.
301 it.
Kill the page and 301 it.
Well, would you kill the page, or would you just place it like in the product in a draft mode?
Yeah, it's functionally the same from a search perspective.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, that's the primary reason is for Google. And so if this is an employee page and they've been profiled on the New York Times and there's a link to your website from the New York Times, if it's 404s, you don't get credit for that anymore.
So here's the interesting thing. So I'm just looking here on the client site. And so the previous, the 404 error goes to like website.com/employees and then the name. When I go to the actual site to look up like their team, they've changed it from employees to about us / our team. And like then so like some of these let me see because there's that's like all of a sudden I'm looking and they're like all these like employees.
Yep.
So I think what they did I have to look and see, but it looks like they maybe did not get that employees page forwarded. So like and just a little bit of backstory. I don't know if I just mentioned this or not. This is so a gym type facility. So these are like trainers.
Yeah.
So these actually trainers might be written up locally as doing something, whatever. And so they may have a link. And so they're losing that.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm going to do a little more checking and see, but there are a few others, bad links, but that's a majority of them. So I can see that like, hey, this is like 3/4 of them is whatever happened to the employee. Then there's also
well, let me interject a second here. So you can do two things. Number one, you can do a wildcard with the redirect. Let's say they changed the directory structure and they moved employees to about employees. You can do a wildcard redirect to say, hey, if anybody asks for employees, send it to about/employees and include you can do some now warning, you got to write it correctly because you could create a loop if you don't write it properly.
Yeah. And the one thing too that I noticed is that it looks like it's harder to find that way because they've got different locations. Oh, huh. Okay. So I'm just looking at their page here now to see they do have an employee page. I wonder if maybe I don't know. I'll have to look it up and see, but they've got locations. So if I just send it to the employee page, it doesn't quite get like they still have to do a lot of searching. It can't just like look down and say, oh, here they are. So I think the wild card for this specific one might not work as well as like one that had them all listed. So that's good to know that, so I think that one I have to look and see exactly what they did. If some of these employees were just old and they hadn't taken them off, in that case, they do need to just kind of go to a main list so that people can
or if they
search.
moved the location, then needs to go to that place in the location.
Yeah.
But this brings up another very important point. We really don't want to change URLs unless we really have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because of this kind of mess we can create. We have to keep redirects in place for at least a year, if not longer. I usually keep redirects in permanently. That's just to protect myself and my clients. So Google will, if there are no backlinks to a URL, it will clear out a Google system in a year. But if there are backlink, did I just freeze up? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, but you're frozen, but we can still hear you.
Okay. So just don't change URLs is a better practice unless you really have to for some legal compliance reason. And when I say don't change URLs, I mean not even a single character. If you change from employee to employees plural, that is a change, and that's going to cause you a headache. It's not wrong. It's just a headache.
Yeah.
I've worked really hard with developers to redesign websites and keep the URL the same to avoid the nightmare of having hundreds, if not thousands, of redirects on a website.
Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
here's a question on that though. Because we had a site that we had to so this site was done in like Microsoft servers, something, whatever. They were search results .aspx or something like that. And obviously WordPress doesn't support that. So I remember asking some questions. I think the best that we could do was to do some redirects for some of those types of pages. So I guess the question is if Google has like the .aspx, do they care about that part of the URL?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
we had no choice. We had to do.
yeah, you have to do the redirect. So like oftentimes, like in this is ASP, the language ASP, as opposed to like a PHP built website. This is an ASP built. When I started in SEO, the company I work for built websites in ASP.
Yeah.
So some of these legacy ones can actually be more valuable to redirect because those links have existed for ages.
Yeah.
Now I love using with WordPress, I use a plugin called Simple 301 Redirects.
I think, yeah.
It's a it's a great plugin with a low overhead. I don't want a plugin that also tracks 404 errors because that creates bloat.
Okay.
Huge
And we can use that in our
databases.
report, so we don't need the 404.
Right. But if it was only up to me and I had access to the server, I'd rather put all the redirects in the htaccess or Nginx file. That doesn't depend on WordPress, so you can usually end up redirecting more file types. For instance, it's really hard to redirect query codes using some of these plugins. Because sometimes you need to. So if you have any access to the server and can add them there, that's a better place. Plus, it's a lot less likely to somebody remove it or there be a glitch with the plugin or something like that.
Yeah.
But Simple 301 redirects, if you're using WordPress, the problem is, like even last week or this week, I was working with one of my client sites, and I ended up adding another 50 redirects just because the site's so old and hadn't been done in a long time. Now this Simple 301 redirects page is full of redirects. It's cumbersome, but important.